Hello again. I'm just going to do a little bit more coverage on the Santander account, and I've put in the description some information that I think people will find of interest. Now, the first thing I have done is I sort of went back to the information that I discussed with the FCA at the compelled interview, and people need to know this, so I'll be candid but also respectful as well, but people do need to know certain things. Now, I can tell you that the account number that they were, because essentially what they did is I assume they'd cut some data from BDO, and it ran from roughly the direct authorization date of Wealth Tech up until the point where I ceased working with Vertem stroke Wealth Tech. Essentially, I was working with Vertem, which was the end of May 21. So you're looking at from towards the end of January 2020 to May 2021. Now, in that period, what they did is they cut some data, and it was looking at what I'd asked them to do when I sort of blew the whistle. And there's also, I'll come to something else that you'll see in the description that'll be interesting. And it looked at cash movements from cash stroke cases, which is relevant given their recent announcement and their contribution, that had been routed through other accounts that were linked to John. And the most dominant by far was the Collingwood account, this account that I identified after receiving these emails that implied that the account still is active. The majority of it in that time, the great majority, went through Collingwood. So I think there was over £10 million. And I wanted to, and I matched the account number that the FCA had used. And I'm not going to put it up in the description, it wouldn't be fair. But those 4 digits match. So we're looking at the same account. And you may recall from the initial videos on this account that I brought Collingwood to their attention as well. Now, I'd like to now jump to another piece of information I put there. I put a link that you can follow to an article in Newcastle Live. Essentially, Reach that do these live links and around. It's how they report their regional news, and it refers to the demise of the Lost nightclub, which was eventually it was operated via this Dead Vibey LLP. Remember that I'd also suggested that the FCA track movements between these LLPs and regulated entity. And it says that, I'll quote from it, but you can read it yourself. The documents say the company was initially funded by a loan of circa £7 million from Collingwood Wealth LLP, which was another business venture of John Dance's. Significant investment was made into renovating the company's leasehold premises, including a considerable amount of market-leading audio-visual equipment, which is what I think I'd heard, that it had one of the best sound systems, certainly in the region and quite likely beyond. And then it sort of says trading losses were incurred on a weekly basis, and directors sought to establish the business. The company lost its financial support as a result of financial irregularities, and the FCA investigation into Mr. Dance's other business ventures. So, yeah, it was making losses. So you've seen, in addition to this £10 million, there's another 7 million here, it suggests, and possibly more to prop the business up as it was making losses. It's not clear how much the 7 million initial loan was to do the refurbishment and so on. There must have been some working capital and so on, but it did operate for a while, and maybe Collingwood had to provide additional support. The fact that it's a loan is a little bit nonsensical, and it's not unreasonable to assume that money came via the same route. Cases, CAS, it would have been cases then, I think, and then through Collingwood, the same bank account. So I think what we can conclude here is that Collingwood was the principal vehicle for what has happened. This large-scale transfer of client assets to various ventures, and the FCA said a luxurious lifestyle for John. And I don't, my understanding is that the transfers of money aren't disputed. It's whether it was done honestly or dishonestly. That's a matter for the defence. So I can only tell you that the clients I spoke to, and they would be in percentage terms quite small relative to the overall client base, not unreasonably believed that they were invested in a way that was in accordance to what they could see on a piece of paper or a screen. So we'll have to see what the angle for not doing it dishonestly is, but that's a matter for the defence. So we can assume that this account was likely the main vehicle for what's happened. Now I want to draw your attention to some correspondence I engaged in with Rycliffe Glenton, Deborah Graham. This was July 2021, and I'd sort of outlined a number of concerns about the operation of Collingwood and whether it had been operated in a honest and legal way. And I'd raised concerns about irregular client movements, so on and so forth, and said that ultimately I believe that there has to be a full investigation of what's been moved between different LLPs and the regulated entity, which is exactly what's happened. And you can see her response. And, I don't know why she thought that. I'm not making this video, and I covered this in the book. It's never been my intention to sort of victimize Deborah Graham. I don't know why she responded that way. It looked to me that my concerns are misplaced. That's the way I understood it. The FCA obviously reached the same conclusion. I guess what I wanted from her was some curious thinking, essentially, which is what I needed from my colleagues from within the organisation as well, and nobody was willing to do that, and so it became very difficult. Now, isn't it kind of strange? I mean, these emails that I've received, you've seen the one that was attached to the video, and I posted another one via a sort of word post on YouTube. It clearly shows that the account is active, because it warned that there wasn't enough funds to cover a pending £250 standing order to Rycliffe Glenton, and then it advised that the payment hadn't been made. So the account is clearly active with funds of less than £250. Now, isn't it extraordinary that an account like this could still even exist when you've got people that have been debanked for what they've said and their opinions and so on. and yet we've got a situation here where a high street bank can't even debank an LLP that ceased to exist. And it's extraordinary. And this to me encapsulates everything that I've been saying about how flawed this system is. Remember when the all-party parliamentary group sort of released quite a stinging report on their opinion of the FCA. Nahil Ratti was sent scampering around the media circuit, delivering fairly polished performances, saying the organisation had been transformed and so on and so forth. Now, where is the evidence for this? Because this doesn't seem to suggest there's been meaningful transformation at all. This is a high street bank, Santander, part of a global banking group that's recently been allowed to consolidate assets from Sabadell, so essentially the old TSB assets, and we still got a situation where they weren't intelligent enough to pick up the fact that this account was linked to a very large financial scandal. Let alone they weren't able to have sophisticated systems enough to notice that there were very, very large suspicious transactions taking place. And the FCA, I mean, why on earth? Surely one of the first things you would do is to, having gone to the investigation and identified this account that was receiving large amounts of money. That's aside to me even advising them way before that, would have just frozen the account and shut it down or whatever, because it raises questions of how much money was in it when at the time of the special administration. Who's been operating it? Has there been money taken out of it and used for other things rather than just servicing a standing order for services it doesn't even receive because it doesn't even exist? So, when I use the term that Wealth Tech really it sort of shown up systemic failures that would make a frontier market blush, people maybe thought I was exaggerating, but I really wasn't. And this is what happens when you put organisations outside of proper realms of accountability. They assume a law unto themselves, and you've got now the FCA that have kind of tried to perfect the art of spinning or sort of engineering catastrophic failures, scandals that couldn't have occurred had they have done their jobs properly. And I'm talking about Wealth Tech and Woodford here. And then spinning them into moral victories. Don't get me wrong, that clients get some or hopefully all of their money back is a good thing. But it doesn't take away the fact that it shouldn't have happened anyway. And there's no evidence other than narrative that gets spat out and repeated that things have really changed. Because, as I told you, we get this cycle where you get the scandal, somebody looks at it and says, well, this doesn't look good, the number of shortcomings here, prejudice. Someone else might look at it and say, well, that actually looks very similar to another scandal. We were told things have been addressed. Prejudice, and then it goes on and on and on. And in the meantime, they use this time that they have, as the case drags on, to then spin the narrative that they've somehow secured a victory, when the victory wouldn't have been necessary had they done their job in the first place. So it really is extraordinary, and it is quite important that people know about these things. I'm not trying to monetize anything, but for the for the safety of the system, people should know how slack the system is under the supervision of the FCA. And ultimately, I believe I was correct when I said, a couple of governments now under, and the chancellors of Hunt and Reeves, ultimately they try to put the cart before the horse and go for growth without reforming the system. And I said at the time that was folly. I think I've been proven correct. That's it for now. Take care. Bye.